The hard path defines you because it strips life down to its essentials and leaves you alone with your choices. When everything is easy, when the road is smooth and predictable, you can move forward without ever discovering who is really walking. Comfort allows you to blend in, to remain untested, to carry potential like an unopened letter. But the moment the path becomes steep, the moment resistance appears, life starts asking questions, not with words, but with pressure. Who are you when there is no shortcut? Who are you when quitting would make sense? Who are you when no one is watching and the reward is far away? These questions don't care about your intentions or your excuses. They only care about your response. The hard path forces you to confront yourself. It reveals the distance between who you say you are and who you are willing to become. Anyone can talk about discipline, courage, patience, and faith when circumstances are kind. Anyone can believe in themselves when results come quickly. But belief without resistance is unproven. Strength without strain is unmeasured. The hard path introduces friction, and friction reveals truth. It exposes the habits you've been avoiding, the fears you've been negotiating with, and the limits you've quietly accepted as permanent. And in that exposure, something uncomfortable but powerful happens. You begin to see clearly. This path does not shape you by rewarding you. It shapes you by demanding something from you. It asks for consistency when motivation fades. It asks for humility when pride wants recognition. It asks for patience when progress feels invisible. Every step forward feels heavier because you are carrying doubt, fatigue, and uncertainty alongside hope. Yet it is precisely this weight that builds your character. You are not defined by the moments when everything aligns. You are defined by what you do when alignment disappears and all that remains is effort. The hard path teaches you that identity is not discovered, it is constructed. You don't wake up one day confident, resilient, or disciplined. You build those qualities decision by decision, especially the ones that cost you something. Each time you choose the harder option, you send a message to yourself. Not a loud one, not something the world applauds, but a quiet internal message that says, I can be trusted. Over time, those messages accumulate. They form self-respect. They form inner stability. They form an identity rooted not in outcomes, but in standards. There is a moment on the hard path when loneliness sets in. When you realize that fewer people are walking beside you, the easy road is crowded. It is filled with agreement, validation, and familiar noise. The hard road is quieter. It removes distractions and forces you to listen to your own thoughts. This silence can be unsettling because you can no longer hide behind momentum or approval. But in that quiet, you begin to hear something else. Your own voice, stronger and clearer. The voice that knows what matters to you. The voice that refuses to be negotiated down by fear. The hard path defines you because it teaches you how to stand alone without feeling empty. Failure becomes a frequent companion here. Not the dramatic kind that ends stories, but the repetitive kind that tests patience, missed goals, slow progress, days when effort feels disconnected from results. The easy path avoids failure by avoiding risk. The hard path accepts failure as tuition. Each failure becomes instruction, it sharpens awareness, refines strategy, and deepens humility. You stop seeing failure as a verdict on your worth and start seeing it as part of your education. And with that shift, resilience is born. Not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet endurance that keeps moving forward without needing reassurance. The hard path also changes how you measure success. Early on, success feels external. Recognition, achievement, visible milestones. But those markers fluctuate. They rise and fall with circumstances. On the hard path, you learn to measure success internally. Did you show up when it was inconvenient? Did you act with integrity when it would have been easier not to? Did you keep your word to yourself? These victories don't always look impressive from the outside, but they compound internally. They build a foundation that doesn't collapse when circumstances shift. Over time, something subtle but profound happens. The challenges that once intimidated you begin to feel familiar. Not because they've disappeared, but because you've changed. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. Your reaction to pressure slows. You stop asking why this is happening to you and start asking what this is shaping in you. The hard path doesn't remove fear, but it teaches you how to move with it rather than be ruled by it. And that ability changes how you approach everything else in life. The hard path defines you because it rewrites your relationship with struggle. Struggle is no longer an enemy. It becomes a signal that growth is taking place, a sign that you are stretching beyond old limits. You begin to understand that ease is not the goal and comfort is not the reward. Meaning is. Alignment is. Becoming someone you respect is. And that kind of fulfillment cannot be handed to you. It has to be earned slowly, deliberately, through choices that no one else may ever notice. In the end, the hard path does not promise certainty. It does not guarantee outcomes. What it offers is transformation. It shapes how you think, how you respond, how you carry yourself through uncertainty. It defines you not by what you achieve, but by who you become while striving. Long after specific goals fade and circumstances change, that identity remains. It shows up in how you handle adversity, how you treat others, and how you face the next challenge without needing to be pushed. Growth lies beyond comfort, because comfort is designed to preserve what you already are, not to reveal what you could become. Comfort keeps life predictable. It keeps your habits intact, your thinking familiar, and your risks carefully managed. It feels safe because it asks nothing new of you. But the very things that make comfort appealing are the same things that quietly limit you. When nothing challenges you, nothing changes. When everything feels easy, you stay the same even if you are moving. Comfort has a way of convincing you that staying still is the same as being stable. It whispers that you have time, that tomorrow will offer another chance, that there is no urgency to stretch beyond what feels familiar. And slowly, almost unnoticed, potential begins to rust. Not because you failed, but because you never demanded more of yourself. Growth doesn't announce itself with ease. It announces itself with resistance. It shows up as discomfort, uncertainty, and the unsettling feeling that you are no longer in control. The moment you step beyond comfort, your identity feels threatened. Your routines are disrupted. Your confidence wavers. You begin questioning whether you are capable, whether you belong, whether the risk is worth it. This internal resistance is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is evidence that you are leaving the territory your mind has memorized. Growth requires you to enter spaces where certainty is replaced with effort and learning replaces mastery. It forces you to trade the safety of what you know for the possibility of what you don't. Discomfort teaches faster than success ever could. When things go smoothly, reflection is optional. When things are difficult, reflection becomes necessary. You are forced to adapt, to think critically, to become aware of your patterns and limitations. You begin noticing how you respond under pressure. Do you retreat? Do you blame? Do you rise? Comfort never reveals these truths. Discomfort puts them under a spotlight. And in that exposure, you gain insight not only into your weaknesses, but into strengths you never had to access before. Beyond comfort, effort becomes intentional. You no longer move on autopilot. Every action requires presence. Every decision carries weight. This level of engagement sharpens your focus and deepens your discipline. You start understanding that motivation is unreliable, but commitment is not. Comfort relies on motivation. Growth relies on structure, consistency, and the willingness to act even when enthusiasm fades. And through this repetition, resilience is built. Not the dramatic kind that shows up once, but the quiet kind that shows up every day. There is a moment when discomfort transforms into capability. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. Not because the challenge shrank, but because you expanded. This is how growth works. It stretches you, holds you there, and then allows you to adapt. Comfort never stretches you long enough for adaptation to occur. It releases you the moment you feel strain. Growth stays with the strain until it becomes strength. And that process changes your perception of difficulty. You stop seeing it as something to escape and start seeing it as something to engage with. Stepping beyond comfort also reshapes your relationship with fear. Fear thrives in avoidance. It grows louder the longer you listen to it without action. But when you move despite fear, its power weakens. You realize fear is not a stop sign, but a signal that something matters, a signal that growth is nearby. Each time you act in its presence, you reclaim authority over your direction. Comfort hands control to fear by obeying it. Growth takes control by acknowledging fear without surrendering to it. As you spend more time beyond comfort, your standards evolve. What once felt like a maximum becomes a minimum. You begin holding yourself to higher expectations, not out of pressure, but out of respect. You realize you are capable of more than convenience allowed you to believe. This shift is subtle but permanent. It affects how you approach work, relationships, and adversity. You stop settling for what is easy and start pursuing what is meaningful. Comfort asks what feels good now. Growth asks what builds strength for later. There is also a deep humility that emerges beyond comfort. When you step into unfamiliar territory, you are no longer the expert. You make mistakes. You ask questions. You learn from others. This humility is not weakness. It is openness. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you progressing. Comfort protects ego by keeping you in environments where you already feel competent. Growth challenges ego by placing you where competence must be earned. And in that challenge, real confidence forms, rooted not in appearance, but in experience. Over time, you begin to crave growth more than ease. Not because discomfort becomes pleasant, but because stagnation becomes unbearable. You recognize the cost of staying comfortable is greater than the cost of stretching. You feel it in your energy, your curiosity, your sense of purpose. Growth reintroduces vitality into your life. It gives direction to your effort and meaning to your struggle. You stop asking how to avoid discomfort and start asking how to use it. Growth lies beyond comfort because comfort protects who you have been, while growth builds who you are becoming, and the life you want cannot be created by staying where it feels safe. Every great story has resistance because resistance is what gives the story its weight, its meaning, and its movement. Without opposition, there is no tension, and without tension, there is nothing that demands change. A story where everything comes easily may sound appealing, but it leaves nothing behind. It doesn't linger. It doesn't shape the character. Resistance is the force that turns moments into milestones and effort into identity. It is the pressure that asks something from the person at the center of the story and refuses to move until an answer is given. Resistance appears the moment you decide to move towards something that matters. The instant you choose growth, purpose, or truth. Resistance shows up as doubt, fear, fatigue, distraction, or delay. It does not arrive to stop you. It arrives to test you. It asks whether this path is just an idea or a commitment, whether your desire is surface level or rooted deeply enough to survive friction. Resistance has a way of challenging your resolve before the world ever does, confronting you internally before obstacles appear externally. At first, resistance feels personal, as if life is pushing back specifically against you. It feels unfair, inconvenient, and isolating. But resistance is not a punishment. It is a requirement. It exists because you are stepping beyond what is ordinary. The greater the potential of the story, the stronger the resistance guarding it. Easy paths do not need resistance because they lead nowhere new. Resistance stands at the threshold of transformation, ensuring that only those willing to persist move forward. Every meaningful pursuit encounters moments where identity remains theoretical. When resistance enters, identity becomes practical. You find out how you respond under pressure, whether you shrink or rise, whether you blame or adapt, whether you wait to be rescued or take responsibility. These responses accumulate over time, shaping your character quietly and permanently. Resistance forces you to earn the next version of yourself rather than inherit it. There is a loneliness that often accompanies resistance. When progress is slow and challenges are frequent, external encouragement fades. Applause disappears, validation becomes rare. This is intentional. Resistance removes the influence of external reward and asks you to continue without it. It teaches you to move based on internal conviction rather than external approval. The ability to persist without recognition is what separates passing effort from lasting impact. Great stories are not written for an audience in the beginning. They are written in private through choices made when no one is watching. Resistance also teaches patience. It slows the pace so growth can catch up with ambition. If results arrived instantly, the person receiving them would not be prepared to sustain them. Resistance stretches time, allowing lessons to take root. It develops discipline, awareness, and emotional control. These qualities cannot be rushed. They are built through repetition, through waiting, through staying engaged even when progress feels invisible. Resistance ensures that when success arrives, it rests on a foundation strong enough to hold it. Fear often disguises itself as resistance, but the two are connected. Fear amplifies resistance by predicting failure, embarrassment, or loss. Yet fear also signals importance. You do not fear things that do not matter to you. The presence of fear confirms that you are invested. Resistance challenges you to act anyway, not because fear disappears, but because purpose outweighs it. Each time you move forward in spite of fear, your confidence becomes more grounded. It is no longer based on certainty, but on experience. Resistance sharpens focus. It forces you to clarify why you started and whether you are willing to continue. When energy is limited and challenges are many, you learn to prioritize. You stop wasting effort on distractions. You become deliberate. You learn the difference between motion and progress. Resistance trims excess and reveals what truly matters. In doing so, it aligns your actions with your values and your time with your intent. As resistance repeats itself, something changes within you. The obstacles that once felt overwhelming begin to feel familiar. Not because they have vanished, but because you have developed the capacity to meet them. You stop being surprised by difficulty. You expect it. You plan for it. And this expectation removes its power to discourage you. Resistance becomes part of the rhythm rather than an interruption. It no longer threatens the story. It advances it. Every great story is remembered not because it was easy, but because it was earned. The struggle gives the outcome meaning. The resistance gives the journey credibility. Without resistance, there is no transformation, only movement. With resistance, every step carries significance. The story becomes not just about reaching a destination, but about who was forged along the way, because resistance is not an obstacle to the story. It is the reason the story matters. You choose who you become in the quiet moments when no one is watching, long before the world sees any result. Becoming is not a single decision or a dramatic turning point. It is the accumulation of small choices repeated daily. Every thought you entertain, every action you justify, every habit you protect is shaping the direction of your life. You are not formed by what you intend to do someday, but by what you repeatedly do today. The future version of you is being built right now, not by chance, not by circumstance, but by choice. It is easy to believe that life happens to you, that your personality, limits, and outcomes are fixed by your past or controlled by forces beyond your reach. This belief is comforting because it removes responsibility. But it is also restrictive because it hands over your power. The truth is more demanding and more hopeful at the same time. You are always choosing, even when you think you are not, choosing to stay silent or speak up, choosing discipline or delay, choosing to confront discomfort or retreat into familiarity. These choices may feel insignificant in isolation, but together they form your identity. You choose who you become by how you respond, not by what happens. Two people can face the same setback and walk away as entirely different individuals. One becomes bitter, guarded, and hesitant. The other becomes wiser, stronger, and more focused. The event did not define them. Their interpretation did. Their response did. Life will apply pressure, but pressure does not determine shape unless you allow it to. What defines you is the meaning you assign to struggle and the behavior you choose under its weight. Becoming requires ownership. It requires acknowledging that while you may not control your starting point, you do control your direction. You may inherit tendencies, circumstances, or limitations, but you inherit responsibility as well. Responsibility is not blame for where you are. It is accountability for where you go next. The moment you accept this, your mindset shifts. You stop waiting for permission to change. You stop needing ideal conditions. You begin working with what you have, where you are. You choose who you become through consistency, not intensity. Big bursts of motivation feel powerful, but they fade. Consistent effort feels ordinary, but it compounds. The person you become is shaped by routines that feel almost invisible. The way you start your mornings, the standards you hold when no one enforces them, the promises you keep to yourself. These are the building blocks of character. They do not attract attention, but they create stability. Over time, they form a self-image that is difficult to shake because it is earned. There is a tension in becoming because growth often requires letting go of versions of yourself that feel familiar. You may outgrow habits, relationships, and beliefs that once felt safe. This can feel like loss, even when it is progress. Choosing who you become sometimes means disappointing people, including the version of yourself that preferred comfort. It means choosing long-term alignment over short-term approval. This is not selfishness. It is self-respect. You choose who you become by what you tolerate. The standards you accept become the boundaries of your life. If you tolerate mediocrity, inconsistency, or dishonesty from yourself, those traits become normal. But when you raise your standards even slightly, behavior must follow. Standards are powerful because they remove negotiation. They turn decisions into defaults. You no longer ask whether you will show up, you simply do. And through that repetition, identity is reinforced. Fear will try to convince you that you must wait until you feel ready. Ready is an illusion. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action. It is a result of it. You choose who you become by acting before certainty arrives, by stepping forward while your voice shakes, by trying before you are prepared. Each time you do this, you prove to yourself that fear does not have authority. And that proof builds courage that no external validation can provide. Becoming also demands honesty. You cannot become someone new while protecting every excuse that keeps you where you are. Honesty means recognizing patterns that no longer serve you. It means admitting when effort has been inconsistent or priorities misplaced. This honesty is not harsh. It is clarifying. It creates space for change by removing self-deception. When you see clearly, you can choose deliberately. The most powerful part of choosing who you become is that it never ends. You are not locked into a single version of yourself. Every day offers a chance to reinforce or redefine your identity, even after failure, even after setbacks. Especially after setbacks, redemption is a choice. Growth is a choice. Reinvention is a choice. You are never too far behind to choose differently today. Your environment will influence you, but it does not decide for you. Your past will inform you, but it does not define you. Labels placed on you only have power if you accept them. You choose who you become by choosing what you believe about yourself and acting in alignment with that belief. Over time, belief becomes behavior, behavior becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. In the end, becoming is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about making choices that move you closer to the person you respect, even when progress feels slow. The world will try to tell you who you are based on results, status, or comparison, but the truest definition comes from within. You are the sum of your decisions, and every decision is a vote for the person you are becoming, shaping a life that reflects not what was handed to you, but what you deliberately chose to build through effort, courage, and persistence until the day you realize that who you are now was once a decision you made and kept making even when it was hard and uncertain and uncomfortable and no one was there to remind you why you started with the quiet knowing that choosing to become today was going to come with the choices you refuse to abandon and we have learned. But one of their time because they remove every rush and expose what has been quaking the sellable lashing you all way rival what's the wall way wants on. When life is smooth, you can move forward without examining yourself. You can rely on routine, distraction, and momentum. But when pressure arrives, when comfort disappears and certainty collapses, there is nowhere left to hide. Hard times do not create character, they uncover it. They bring to the surface the beliefs you live by, the habits you've reinforced, and the truths you've been avoiding. In ease, strength can be assumed. In hardships, strength must be proven. Anyone can appear confident when outcomes are predictable. Anyone can seem disciplined when motivation is high and obstacles are few. But when the path narrows and resistance increases, appearances fall away. What remains is how you respond when effort is required without guarantee. Hard times reveal whether your values are real or rehearsed, whether your resilience is practiced or theoretical. Pressure exposes priorities. When time, energy, and emotional capacity are limited, you can no longer give attention to everything. You are forced to. Others use the same experience to rewrite their story, seeing hardship as evidence that they are being tested for something greater. The situation may be the same, but the meaning assigned to it determines the direction taken. Fear becomes impossible to ignore in hard times. It rises quickly, offering escape routes and justifications. It urges you to shrink your goals, lower your standards, and settle for less in the name of safety. Hard times reveal whether fear is something you obey or something you acknowledge and move through. Courage is not revealed in comfort. It is revealed when fear is present and action is taken anyway. Hard times expose discipline. When motivation fades and rewards are delayed, discipline either carries you forward or leaves you stranded. This is where preparation shows itself. Habits built in easier seasons become lifelines in harder ones. If discipline was neglected when it was optional, its absence becomes obvious when it is necessary. Hard times do not allow you to borrow strength from the future. They demand that you draw from what you have already built. Relationships are revealed as well. Hardship shows you who supports you without conditions and who only walks with you when the path is smooth. It also reveals how you show up for others when you are under strain. Do you withdraw completely or do you remain grounded in empathy and integrity? Pressure reveals not only who is around you, but who you are within those connections. There is also an honesty that emerges in hard times that comfort rarely produces. Excuses lose their effectiveness. Delays become more costly. You are forced to confront what you have been avoiding, whether it is a difficult conversation, a necessary change, or a truth about yourself. This honesty can be uncomfortable, but it is clarifying. It removes illusion and replaces it with awareness. And awareness is the first step toward real change. Hard times reveal patience. When progress slows and solutions are not immediate, impatience tests your emotional control. You learn whether you can remain steady without constant reassurance, whether you can continue doing the work without seeing immediate results. This patience is not passive. It is active endurance. It is the ability to stay engaged without becoming reactive. And this ability reshapes how you approach future challenges. Humility is also uncovered. Hard times remind you of your limits. They challenge ego and disrupt assumptions. They show you that effort does not guarantee outcomes and that control is often partial at best. This humility is not weakness. It is grounding. It keeps you open to learning, to asking for help, to adapting rather than resisting reality. Those who reject humility in hard times often become rigid. Those who accept it become resilient. Hardship reveals whether your sense of identity is rooted in outcomes or in values. When achievements are taken away or progress stalls, those who define themselves by results feel lost. Those who define themselves by principles remain steady. Hard times test this distinction. They show whether your self-worth fluctuates with circumstances or remains anchored in how you choose to act regardless of circumstances. Over time, hard times change how you see difficulty itself. What once felt overwhelming becomes familiar, not because it disappeared, but because you learned how to move within it. You stop expecting life to be fair and start expecting it to be instructive. You stop asking why this is happening and start asking what this is revealing. And in that shift, power returns to you. Hard times are not interruptions to life. They are part of its design. They reveal strength that comfort never demands, clarity that ease never requires, and depth that surface level success never provides. They show you what you are made of by asking you to keep going when it would be understandable to stop, to remain honest when it would be easier to avoid, to stay aligned with your values when external rewards disappear. And in doing so, they quietly separate who you thought you were from who you truly are under pressure, when everything that once supported you has been stripped away and only your choices remain visible in the silence that follows the storm. When the path gets hard, you get better because difficulty has a way of demanding more from you than ease ever will. Easy seasons allow you to coast, to rely on what you already know, to repeat patterns without questioning them. Hard seasons interrupt that rhythm. They remove convenience and replace it with challenge. They force you to show up differently, to think deeper, to act with intention instead of habit. When the path hardens beneath your feet, you can no longer move unconsciously. Every step requires effort, and in that effort, growth begins. Hard paths slow you down, and that slowness is not punishment, it is instruction. When progress is no longer quick, you are forced to examine how you move. You begin to notice your weaknesses, your gaps, your assumptions. The easy path lets flaws hide behind momentum. The hard path exposes them and invites you to strengthen what was once ignored. It teaches you that speed is not the same as direction, and that improvement often comes not from doing more, but from doing better. When the path gets hard, your mindset is tested before your strength. You learn quickly that motivation is fragile. It rises and falls with mood, energy, and circumstance. Hard paths do not wait for you to feel ready. They require action even when enthusiasm is absent. This is where discipline is forged. You begin to act not because you feel like it, but because you decided to. Over time, this decision-based action builds reliability within yourself. You become someone who can be counted on, especially by yourself. Hardship sharpens focus. When everything is comfortable, distractions feel harmless. When the path gets hard, distractions become costly. You no longer have the luxury of scattered attention. You must prioritize. You must decide what truly matters and let the rest fall away. This clarity is not always pleasant, but it is powerful. It aligns your energy with your values and your time with your purpose. The hard path teaches you to aim instead of wander. As difficulty increases, excuses lose their strength. You can no longer rely on ideal conditions or perfect timing. You work with what you have, or you stop moving altogether. Those who continue learn a critical lesson. Progress is possible even in imperfect conditions. In fact, it is often born there. You stop waiting for confidence and start building it through action. Each small victory earned under pressure reinforces the belief that you are capable of more than you thought. When the path gets hard, resilience becomes practical. It is no longer a concept or a motivational phrase. It becomes the ability to absorb setbacks without collapsing, to adjust without quitting, to continue without certainty. You learn how to fall and stand again without drama. You stop being surprised by difficulty and start expecting it. This expectation does not make the journey easier, but it makes you steadier. You are no longer thrown off course by resistance because you understand it as part of the terrain. Hard paths also deepen self-awareness. Under pressure, your emotional responses become clearer. You see how you handle frustration, delay, and disappointment. You notice whether you react impulsively or respond thoughtfully. This awareness is invaluable. It gives you the opportunity to choose differently next time. Growth is not the absence of struggle, but the refinement of response. Each challenge becomes a mirror, showing you where you are and where you can improve. There is a quiet confidence that develops on hard paths. Not the loud confidence that seeks validation, but the grounded confidence that comes from experience. You begin to trust yourself because you have evidence. You have endured difficulty before and survived it. You have adapted, you have learned. This confidence does not depend on outcomes. It is rooted in capability. It stays with you regardless of circumstance because it was built through effort, not given through praise. When the path gets hard, character is strengthened. Integrity becomes more than an idea. It becomes a choice you make when cutting corners would be easier. Hardship reveals whether your values are conditional or consistent. Each time you act in alignment with what you believe under pressure, those values become part of you. They are no longer something you aspire to. They are something you live. Hard paths teach patience. Progress is slower, Results are delayed, and effort is often invisible. You learn to stay engaged without immediate reward. This patience trains emotional endurance. It allows you to remain steady without constant reassurance. In a world that demands instant results, this ability becomes a rare strength that gives you an advantage, not because you move faster, but because you last longer. There is also humility in difficulty. Hard paths remind you that you do not control everything. They challenge ego and expectation. They show you the limits of force and the value of adaptability. This humility keeps you open. It allows you to learn, to seek guidance, to change course when needed. Those who resist humility often break under pressure. Those who embrace it bend, adjust, and continue. When the path gets hard, empathy grows. Struggle softens judgment. It teaches you that everyone is carrying something unseen. This understanding deepens your connections and broadens your perspective. You become less reactive, more patient, more human. Hardship refines not only your strength, but your compassion. Over time, you realize that the hard path did not take something from you. It added something to you. Skills you did not have, awareness you did not possess, strength you had not accessed. You are no longer the same person who started the journey. Difficulty has shaped you quietly, consistently, and deeply. What once felt unbearable now feels familiar. What once felt intimidating now feels possible. When the path gets hard, you get better not because struggle is pleasant, but because it demands growth, because it removes illusion, because it calls you to rise rather than retreat, because it teaches you how to move forward without certainty and how to stand firm without comfort, because it transforms effort into strength and challenge into capability and resistance into refinement, until one day you realize that the hard path did not slow you down or hold you back, but became the very process through which you learned how to carry more weight, move with more intention, and become someone who no longer fears difficulty but recognizes it as the place where your strongest self continues to be formed